Thanks, Lauren. And as Lauren mentioned, my name is Chris Johnson, Regional Director here at Atomic Jolt. And for those of you who don't know much about Atomic Jolt, I have seen a few friendly names and familiar names in the registration list. But in case you're new or haven't heard of Atomic Jolt before, we're an education technology company with nearly 20 years of experience. I myself have just under 10 years of experience and am a former instructor makers of Canvas employee, so I know the LMS very well. And our goal is to really help extend Canvas to reach all learners. And the focus today, as Lauren mentioned, is to talk a little bit about our tools that drive the social engagement, the social interactions, uh, learning reflection, and giving the students the opportunity to provide feedback in their learning content as well. Just a high level overview, we partner with all major LMSs, and we have now over 250 customers that utilize Canvas for their teaching and learning. And we offer a variety of different products. You may have heard about Atomic Search before, which is a search engine inside of Canvas, and we just launched Find and Replace that allows you to seamlessly update your learning content. We have another tool called Atomic Assessments that allows you to create formative and summative assessments. My favorite thing about Atomic Assessments is the ability to create interactive questions inside of your learning content within Canvas. But again, this webinar and this Lunch and Learn is focused on our social tools. So we'll be talking about atomic polls, atomic discussions, and atomic journals. Let's start with atomic polls. So ultimately, the differentiator with atomic polls is the ability to create a polling question anywhere within Canvas. And as all of you know, it's important to keep the students in the LMS to retain their engagement and also to ensure that you're tracking the amount of time spent in Canvas for those student intervention dashboards or to get better insight into how they're engaging in their learning content. And so our polling solution allows you to drop in these questions, get that real-time feedback anywhere within your Canvas learning content. And hopefully you'll find that we make that very easy to do so and don't require third-party clickers or some of those polling hardware devices that are kind of a pain to deal with. And then we also have Atomic Discussions. Atomic Discussions is different than what's available in Canvas Discussions in that it allows you to drop in a discussion anywhere within your learning content. So you'll see how we can embed comment boxes or discussion prompts right within learning pages or within your syllabus. Again, anywhere that utilizes the rich content editor within Canvas. And then we'll also talk about atomic journals, which is less about interacting with peer-to-peer interaction with the students. And this is more a tool that helps facilitate learning by creating reflection prompts and allowing your students to seamlessly download that journal in case they want to put it in their e-portfolio, their career readiness folder, or take it to job interviews to ensure that there's a smooth transition, post-graduation. All right. I know you're not here for slides. Let's talk a little bit about Canvas and let's take a look at some learning content and show you how the tools can be utilized to capture feedback and also boost learner engagement. And so what I'd like to start with is this learning page. This is likely a learning page that you've seen before in your Canvas instance. It's very text heavy. It's very, as we call, sit and get, and doesn't really allow students to interact, engage in the learning materials, and quite frankly, that leads to less learning retention. And so what we want to do is we want to encourage that social learning approach and capture the student feedback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by embedding an atomic polls right within this learning page. And again, just as a reminder, it doesn't necessarily have to be a learning page. If you have the LTI plugin in your rich content editor, which is pretty much everywhere within Canvas, you'll be able to embed these polls or these discussions anywhere. So in this case, I want to just ask the students their feedback. After they've learned about the various different leadership styles, I want to give them the opportunity to just capture their feedback on what kind of leader they'd like to report to most. So in this example, I'm just going to edit this page and place a poll right at the bottom of the page. So from my LTI dropdown, I'm going to select atomic polls. And from here, we're going to capture some student feedback. Now, the first option is adding questions. We offer 4 different question types, and you'll see them listed here. Our Likert style question is our most recent development and allows you to give students the opportunity to give a ranking or how they feel on a scale, a Likert style scale. In this case, I'm going to choose our single response question. And again, what I'm trying to capture is, what kind of leader they want to report to most. So I'm going to just edit this prompt and we're going to put in a few options. You'll notice I've said this before, it keeps all of this information for me in case I'm regenerating polls. And I can put as many options as I'd like. Keep in mind that can impact the learning experience. We want to not make it too scroll heavy in our page, but there's really no limitation on how many options you put here. Once I've written my prompt and the various different options, you'll notice I have some settings where I can show feedback, whether it just be general or option specific. In this case, I want to ask my students to explain their choice and tell me why. And I can go ahead and save this. I can also add multiple questions if I wanted to, make this a 3, 5, 10 question poll. I can certainly do that. And let's take a look at what that looks like from the student experience. So again, now I have the same information that's presented, but I also can provide my feedback from a student's perspective. I can say that I like, a situational leader because they adapt to, right? And go ahead and submit my answer. This will then allow them to see how other students have voted if you choose to turn that setting on. My favorite way to embed a poll is through announcements. And the reason being is announcements have a lot of those notification settings automatically baked in within Canvas. And so if I'm trying to capture student feedback on the fly, I can quickly just generate an announcement that's going to send a notification based on their, push notifications and their notification settings inside of Canvas and allow them to, right from their phone, iPad, or laptop, engage into this poll. I'm going to pause there. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, that was just an interaction to allow student feedback, to give their a quick poll and share their response. But I'd also like to encourage students to interact with each other. And this is where atomic discussions comes in handy. So again, I want to break up this text. I don't want my students to see a wall of text and get intimidated. I want to ensure that they're participating in their learning, taking an active approach. So I'm going to just discuss with them, in this case, let's just edit the transformational leader portion. And I want to, encourage some thought and reflection. So I'm just going to ask them in this case, who's a good example of a transformational leader? So I'm going to embed a comments box with atomic discussions. And we're going to call this real quick, transformational leader. And then similar to atomic polls, I have some settings here that I can choose and ensure that this interaction is exactly what I want. So if I want to add more social features, I can add threaded replies where students can interact with each other. I can make this anonymous if I want to keep, the names of my students private and their thoughts, their own. And then I can also allow them to like. And my favorite setting is the ability, and similar to Canvas, where you can require students to post before they're seeing replies. All right, let's take a look at what this looks like from the student experience now. So you can imagine that, I, in this case, just put one comment box where students can, discuss their formational leadership. But if the material lend itself to, I could put a comment box in between each of these sections to encourage that interaction. And this is much different than Canvas discussions, where you are essentially taken to the discussion settings within Canvas. It's kind of bolted on in the bottom. This allows you to interact directly within the learning content and start socializing or sharing your thoughts with your students. Let's take a look at what that looks like when it's a little bit more baked, a little bit more fully baked, and there's actually some student interactions. So I'm going to go to another learning page that's just duplicated, that shows the same page but with some student interaction. So now we have this same page, but again, it's now showing some interaction where students are engaging with each other, they're liking each other's posts. In this case with Natalie, you may see that this has been flagged as inappropriate, or that it has profane language, or some bullying terms. And what this does is send a notification to that instructor to let them know to review it and to remove it before it's seen, or before it becomes an issue. I can also view analytics. So if I wanted to get a more high-level view of who's commented or isolate each student's results, I can certainly do so. And now I'm just looking at James, and if I wanted to reply to James, I could do so. All right. And then when it comes to the poll, you'll see that I have students interacting with each other, explaining their preferred leadership style. All of these analytics can be reviewed, taking the class list or the people setting or the roster inside of the course. It will tell us exactly who's voted and who's not, in case I needed to action each of these learners and say, hey, please be sure to submit the poll. If ever you want to capture that feedback and bring it into a business intelligence tool, you can also download this as a CSV file and bring it into some of those business intelligence tools, learners' dashboards, or whatever application it makes sense to do so. All right, I'm going to pause again there. Lauren, any questions I can answer from the group here?
No questions yet. Just a reminder, if you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Lauren. All right. So at this point, you'll notice that this learning page has transformed a little bit. It's no longer a sit and get wall of text with no student interaction. We now have students engaging right within the learning content, sharing their feedback, and ensuring that it's not only them just reading what information is here, but actually applying it with real world examples. All right. So we've now seen atomic polls, we've seen atomic discussions. Let's take a look at atomic journals, which again allows that learner reflection, and it's more of a student to teacher tool.
And Chris, we have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
Asking about, does this sync with the gradebook?
So the tool can sync with the gradebook depending on where you embed the application. So if you created an assignment and made a poll an assignment, or a discussion an assignment, then it could be graded. I find that if you're creating a discussion, it's almost better to create a graded Canvas discussion. Atomic discussions is a little bit more for just low stakes interactions between students. But certainly with atomic polls, you can embed it into assignment to utilize that for attendance, or to capture their feedback. Or if you wanted to just do a quick poll as a quiz, you certainly could do that. All right. And then to kind of transition to atomic journals, these also can be graded elements as well. And I'm happy to show you that portion of it. So in this case, we've created another page called Leadership Style Reflection. And here we've reminded the students of the various different leadership styles they've learned, but now ask them to engage with their journal and share what some of the pros and or the advantages and disadvantages of each leadership style is. Now, if you were to do this in Canvas, what I've heard from a lot of instructors, professors, LMS admins, is the workaround is to either create Google Docs or Microsoft Docs and have students continuously build learning content. But that's very hard to allow that constant feedback and check-ins. Or if you wanted to create 4 different writing reflections, you create 4 different assignments in Canvas. And that's a problem for your students because if they're going to submit each of those prompts whenever they want to collectively put their journal together and have that ready for their e-portfolio, well, then they're then forced to download 4 separate different documents and combine those into one. And so it doesn't create that seamless learning experience that you'd hope for your students. Whereas this makes it very easy for students to not only engage in the prompts, but also to take that offline with them when it makes sense to do so. So let's talk a little bit about how to create these journal prompts. And I'm sure now that you've seen atomic discussions and atomic polls, you probably already have that workflow in your mind, but let's just take a look. So I'm going to edit another page here, and we're going to allow students final reflection. And I can edit this page again and put that journal prompt right at the bottom. I'm going to select atomic journals here. We'll give it a prompt. If I wanted to add an image or a banner, I certainly could do so. Let's do that actually. Perfect. And now I have a journal prompt. Now, what you haven't seen is at this point, there's been 4 different writing prompts or interactions. So let's just real quick become a student and we'll walk you through how you can navigate these.
And Chris, I do have another question.
Sure.
Can the discussions collapse on the page if a student wanted to only view the text?
So if they're not wanting to see the learning content outside of the discussion. That's a good question. I don't know how you would do that, but we can certainly follow up with that.
Okay.
All right, so in this example, I'm one of my students, Natalie Baker here, and we're going to just engage into this learning journal, right? So here's that first journal entry. I've seen that she's already made a response. If I wanted to see where I'm at within the journey, I can click show all, and it's going to show me where I'm at within those 4 learning prompts. If I wanted to edit this page and make some revisions, I could add some media. But I can also, and this is again where I feel like there's one of that bigger differentiator in the student workflows, I can download this journal. And what you'll see here is this is providing all of the journal prompts and their responses to it in one package. So again, if I wanted to turn my journal in for any of a capstone project or save it to my portfolio, I have my full journal downloaded, 4 different prompts combined into one PDF to make that very easy for them to do so. From the teacher's perspective, if I wanted to grade these, there's a few different options I can use. First, I can look at the reporting prompts. I can show all of the prompts for the entire course and take a look at Natalie Baker's work here. I can provide feedback, provide a score, or if I'm really fond of the speed grader inside of Canvas, I can also utilize the speed grader. And just an example of that, here's Jane's prompt. I can provide her score, write out feedback, and use the media tools that the speed grader allows. Another advantage of atomic journals is the grading options you have. So in some cases, there's different instructors who like to grade differently. And atomic journals is adaptable, whether you want to make the grade book so that the journal is just one column in the grade book and sums up the 4 different prompts and their results to one final grade. Or if you wanted to make that so that it's each prompt is its own column within the gradebook. So if there's 30 points, they'll see where they stand on each column within the gradebook. You can do that as well. And the way that you do that is right here in Atomic Journals. You have the ability to choose whether this is, points, whether it's a pass fail grade or if it's ungraded. In my case, I've made this worth 30 points. And I've made it so that each column or each prompt creates a new column in the gradebook. And so that they will see how they performed on each prompt. But again, if you did want to make it just one column in the gradebook that just accumulates all the points for each prompt, you could do that as well. You can also view these activities to see where students are doing and their progress within them as well.